And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. Smasho here, coming at you from the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. We've got amazing filamentary activity here, a bunch of sunspots, a huge uptick in solar activity. Radio flux now up to 172 solar flux units as we approach the previous highs, which occurred back in May of 2022. And we've been naming filaments. Let's take a look at some sunspots. That's yesterday plus today. And we've had a little bit of growth in this southern group down here. Also this southern group over here. This group over here is spectacularly huge and magnetically complex. The likelihood of additional M or even X-class flares remains very high. Here's your SDO magnetogram. And let's take a look at those filaments. They are berserk. Check this out. So we've been naming filaments. The first one is this one up here, which is going into a crazy swirling motion here. Check it out. It's fantastic. That right there is the Renee Gable filament, that crown prominence up there. That is named after the viewer that came up with the idea of naming filaments. Since some meteorologists are naming individual water molecules in the ocean now based on every possible event that occurs, we've started naming filaments after living people. So here is another filament. This one was named by Zach Tovin yesterday on our Twitter feed. This one down here, over here, right down this area. This filament is called the Bill Nye. Yeah, Bill Nye, the quote, science and quote guy filament. Over here, we've got the Zach Tovin filament. That's this one. On the leading portion of that new sunspot group, the one that produced the X-class flare. And then we've got the Kanye West filament, which is still in the east, but it's soon to be in the west. Let's take a brief look at Earth here before we get back to the realm of space. So looking at volcanoes next, that is the plan. Let's see what's going on. What is erupting, you ask? Well, Shivaluch is. It's producing a 25,000-foot ash plume as it explodes on the Kamchatka Peninsula. It's a flight level 250. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Subinosejima, flight level 060. Semaru, flight level 130. 13,000-foot ash plume over East Java. 10,000-foot ash plume over Merapi in western Sumatra, Indonesia, as it explodes. A dense black ash plume there, hurling pyroclastic fragments. And that is yet another reason to not pole vault active volcanoes. Kilauea's effusive activity is confined within the Halema Uma'u crater. Perhaps go view two pineapples. Shout out to two pineapples. And congratulations on your getting above 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, two pineapples. Popocatépetl exploding in central Mexico, flight level 200. That's a 20,000-foot ash plume. Fuego in Guatemala exploding, flight level 150. It's a 15,000-foot ash plume. Nevado del Ruiz in Colombia also exploding. Flight level 260 over Colombia from Nevado del Ruiz. Cotopaxi has dispersed its volcanic ash over Ecuador, fertilizing the landscape, and Sabancaya continues to erupt explosively. 24,000-foot ash plume over Peru. Flight level 240. Let's take a look at seismicity here. The past 90 days are depicted here, and we are seeing another 7-magnitude earthquake drought. Keep in mind, any earthquake can be a foreshock. Let's scroll up the list here. No major quakes over the past 24 hours. We'll report on anything above a 5 magnitude. So was there even a single 5 magnitude in the past 24 hours? So lots of small quakes here, no large quakes. Again, keep in mind, any earthquake can be a foreshock. So there was a 5.2 there at at Morocco. Yes, that was the largest quake of the past 24, only a 5.2 magnitude. And let's get back to space. But first, let's invite all of our viewers to join us at smashomash.com/SmashTeam. If you want to support the content, please do. We are paid just this side of nothing to put out the most detailed space weather and imagery of the sun you'll find anywhere in the known universe. Smashomash.com/SmashTeam is a site that we launched last October. So we are still on Patreon as well as all kinds of other social media. So hit us up over there. Drop us a line if you've got auroral imagery or other interesting stuff to share on the videos. We'd be more than happy to share viewer content. SmashoMash.com/SmashTeam. Join at the gold or silver level. There is also a bronze level. You'll get disaster alerts, sign up for email alerts, etc. at SmashoMash.com/SmashTeam. You'll also find links to the Hemp Lucid shop. So enjoy some discounts over there by entering the promo code SmashoMash10 on checkout. All kinds of different solutions to your everyday lives problems, perhaps. So if you haven't checked out any of the products, check them out. Support the channel that way. Get something legit like CBD creams and topicals. Yes. 3 packs of lip balm are only $18.95. Full spectrum CBD lip balm. Also CBD for your pets there. And just a reminder, we are still on Patreon. We are a little bit delayed in the credit crawl. Patreon still does exist, though, so if it's more convenient for you to support the channel that way, please do on Patreon. Patreon.com/SmashoMash. Now we're looking at some composite imagery here. This is one of our favorite composites here. This is 335 plus 171 angstroms. It shows great depth of the corona, as the corona is very bumpy. The sun might look smooth from Earth, but in ultraviolet, there is a lot going on in that solar atmosphere known as the corona. Here are some other spectacular wavelengths. This is kind of where we started out. That is the... Whoops. What in the hell? It refuses to let me hide the controls. Okay. Anyway, there's 335. I'm sorry, there's 193 plus 304 angstroms. That's probably the best composite to show filaments. If you ever want to make your own videos on HelioViewer, 304 plus 193 shows fantastic definition of filaments. Also, the 193 angstroms shows the outer corona. Let's take a look at some more data here, as some interesting things have been happening in the past 24 hours. And indeed, that video there is 24 hours of the closest star. And thanks for stargazing with us. Is that Cookie Spacey? Good morning to you as well. The 10.7 centimeter radio flux now at 172 solar flux units, up 18 points from yesterday. There is the 1-year graph to put it in context, and we are approaching the former highs for radio flux, which occurred back in May. That was 180 solar flux units. If you're wondering what a solar flux unit is, it's 10,000 joules of radio flux density. You can expect to see the sunspot number come up drastically today also, as there are a lot of sunspots on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. We do believe also we've recently seen a minor coronal mass ejection impact. Perhaps it was traveling a little faster than we expected. We are expecting to see another minor one tomorrow, early to midday tomorrow on January 8th. In any case, we don't expect any major geomagnetic storms, possibly a brief KP5, G1 geomagnetic storm there for a brief period, maybe a few hours. NOAA not forecasting any geomagnetic storms or geomagnetic unrest. KP index currently below 1 here, so it's very geomagnetically calm. KP 0.67. Next, Earth's magnetic moment from space. And that is the last 4 hours. We are seeing the subsiding of a likely minor CME impact here. We'll show you why we think that in just a moment. That's the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. We are seeing some oddities here, actually. So, seeing some interesting magnetic pulses here all around the equatorial portion of the planet. Kind of strange there. I'm going to let it play through a second time, just so you can sort of take that in. That's the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. So some rather odd magnetic pulses happening here in places like the West Pacific. Also the Southern Ocean seeing some odd magnetic pulses. And let's move to the real-time solar wind next. So this looks like a CME impact to me. Let us know in the comments if you think I'm wrong. As I like to be wrong, it leads to evolution. I don't try to gaslight people on the internet and claim I was right when I was utterly incorrect. The way to handle being incorrect, folks, is to admit it, get ahead of it, and move on with life and evolve, not paint yourself into a corner, attempt to gaslight people on the internet, and look like a complete jackass. So yeah, CME impact there, it looks like, as we see an increase in the solar plasma, an increase in the speed, an increase in the density, and a shift in the magnetic field all at the same time. It does not look like a coronal hole impact there. Looks like a minor CME impact. The heights of it were about 14.5 protons per cubic centimeter and 536 kilometers per second for the speed. It is now mostly subsided, if not completely subsided. Current conditions are solar wind density about 6.66 protons per cubic centimeter, solar wind speed 438 kilometers per second. Moving on to magnetic data. Here are our GOES magnetometers. The GOES 16 and the GOES 18 now. Showing a little tighter range there, a little lower highs and higher lows on the GOES magnetometers. Let's show the 7-day to put it in a little bit greater context. There you go. And next we'll look at the heliospheric current sheet. I forecast there is a North Pole current sheet rushing this way. Not showing up on the data yet there, just barely accelerating at the end. Earth is currently solidly in a South Pole current sheet. Almost the entire south solar polar field here currently sort of pointed toward the Earth. North Pole current sheet largely pointed in the opposite direction. Here's our line of sight field plot. The solar B field depicted here in blue, that is the field that goes through the magnet. North solar polar field in green, south solar polar field in red. I'm sorry, north solar polar field in green, south solar polar field in red. Is that what I said? Anyway, moving on. Keep in mind this data is 1 hour and 23 minutes old when we streamed it. And here's our line of sight coronal hole plot. So lots of south pole oriented coronal holes here. And let's take a look at the view from SDO in 211 angstroms. 211 angstroms is also pretty good at showing filaments, folks. Anyway, those coronal holes there, those are all south pole oriented. The south solar polar field largely oriented toward planet Earth at the moment. Let's take a look at sunspots next. 3182 is definitely the star of the star. Don't be surprised to see additional major flares from it. And of course, because it is shaped like a triangle, that is something to be frightened of. There's nothing spookier than shapes. Everybody knows that shapes are very, very spooky. So let's take a look at some more imagery here. I know people are frightened of space because they haven't taken physics 2, I guess. But in any case, here is the last 24 hours from SDO. That's the magnetogram plus 171 angstroms. As it shows ultraviolet light there in addition to the polarized light that creates a magnetogram. So ionized iron there showing up in 171 angstroms, as well as the polarized light, which gives us the magnetogram. Here is the SDO continuum plus 171 angstroms. And here's a little closer view. That's the last 24 hours of activity. And we've subtracted 171 angstroms. And thanks for leaving a comment, Robert, a.k.a. One Audio. Shout out! Next, we will look at energetic particles. We had a tiny spike in the proton flux. It's barely noticeable. I mean, if you look at the 1 day, it might show up as just this side of nothing. I'll say the proton flux has remained flatlined here. Haven't seen a proton event for a couple of months, actually. And there is the X-ray flux. There was an M-class flare late in the day yesterday. Early in the day today. That occurred around 0 dark 50. Exactly 24 hours from that X-class flare. So that's interesting. Exactly 24 hours, an X-class and then an M-class flare. Like to the minute. So here's the last 24 and 94 angstroms. One of the better wavelengths to view solar flares. This is ultraviolet light also, a very specific band of ultraviolet light. Not to be confused with X-rays. This is not X-rays. It is ultraviolet light. A much lower energy portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. Here we've added 131 angstroms, so now it's 94 plus 131. And it looks like that M-class flare came from this insane sunspot group in the southeast as well. Here's 131 angstroms by itself. Indeed, that M-class flare came from this new sunspot group. It is a spectacular sunspot group, and let's take a look at what's going on overhead Lehigh Valley. So we've got a star chart here. We'd like to orient our viewers. Cygnus rising high in the sky as the sun is up as well. Usually it's not up by the time we create these videos. Pardon our lateness, we slept in today. It was a long week. In any case, that's what's going on. That's in-the-sky.org. Let's do a solar system forecast to further orient our viewers. So this is where things are now, and happy full moon. Was it yesterday? Was it today? I don't know. Let us know in the comments. Here's where things will be on the 14th of January as Earth moves to a very lonely side of the star, a side absent gas giants. And let's take a look at some coronagraphs. Were there CMEs? Well, there certainly were. Are any of them directed at Earth? Well, I think one actually was. It's pretty minor. Expecting a barely noticeable impact there. But there was a CME here. It looks pretty stealthy. That's 81 frames from yesterday. Here are 51 more frames from today. And we're going to show you that CME, which is likely earthly directed. At least a small component of it is. So it's pretty stealthy. It's very diffuse. It'll barely create a signal. But in any case, let's take a look at the view from Lagrange 5 and Lagrange 1. Stereo A is at Lagrange 5. And Soho-Lasco C3 is at Lagrange 1. So at this moment here, we do see some ejecta coming out of stereo A. So that's yesterday at 2009. If you bring it back a little bit, you can see some ejecta right here. It's very minor. It's very stealthy. But right there, you can see some ejecta perhaps. Let me rock that back again. And a small portion of that ejecta is earthly directed, I believe. So once again, if we bring this back, you can see a bit of a halo happening there. So I believe a small component of that is earthly directed. I don't expect that to even make a KP4 event. It's very diffuse. Let's bring those back and play them through here. Please note the time and date stamps. These are not synchronized, and they do not represent the same frames. And while we play that, a little side tip, we need a stereo BX. So stereo A still works. Stereo B was messed up in September 2015 by some sort of a hardware event. And we need a stereo B with an X-ray detector on it because we want to prove that solar flares are anisotropic. In other words, is it possible that a solar flare is a different intensity depending on viewing angle? Some of us think it certainly is. And that would represent some serious physics. Let's zoom out a little bit to show that ejecta a little bit better. So a small component of that likely earthly directed and unlikely to cause anything noticeable, at least not any sort of a geomagnetic unrest or storm condition. We'll zoom out a little further here to show the majority of the field of view there from Soho-Lasco C3. That's the blue imagery. Next, let's talk about filaments because we've been naming them. We've got names for most of the filaments now. So up here we've got the Renee Gable Crown Prominence. Right here we've got the Kanye West, which is still in the east. Let us know in the comments if you think it'll make it to the west. We've also got the Bill Nye filament. That's this one down here, actually. That's the Bill Nye. And then over here, we've got the Zach Tovin, named in honor of the first person who actually named a filament on Twitter. So let's keep it going here with Name That Filament. So here's the progression. This is how it works. We marked up the image. There's the Bill Nye naming process. Come on, Twitter. You can handle loading data. So once again, we invite you to name that filament. And we invite Elon Musk to end the pathetic and putrid big tech censorship on Twitter and stop misleading investors. In the meantime, name that filament. Join us on Twitter if you haven't. And if you haven't checked out the links in the description, check out our Redbubble shop. Some of the items might seem inflammatory. Some of them might seem like just basic words of wisdom. Some of them are just basic facts that people don't seem to be able to grasp. But in any case, we decided to put up some new designs because reasons. That's our latest. And congratulations on surviving a global pandemic so far. Today's featured product is being worn by me, Mensa. Make Earth not suck again. It's up to you, not giant bureaucracies that can't even get out of their own way and do their own job. Mensa. Make Earth not suck again. It's up to you. Smashamash.org is doing its part to make Earth not suck again. So tell your friends and foes about the content and the merch. This is our third bestseller, actually. And these products have made it all the way to Tasmania. Yeah, Tasmania. We do ship internationally, so check it out. We've made I've Survived Global Democide products there for all kinds of different locations, including Belarus, Germany, Canada, China, and more. China. It's all the fault of China, okay? China's been making Earth suck again, okay? Probably all with stolen U.S. intellectual capital. If you enjoy the content, press like and subscribe. Tell your friends and foes about us. I'm not sure if that'll help. You're probably shadow banned on the internet too. Yes. Elon, he's done a fine job exposing shadow bans as reality. He's done a fine job exposing the corrupt collaboration between the FBI and Twitter. He's done a fine job of creating SpaceX, and he's done a terrible job of misleading investors at Tesla, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and Twitter. The U.S., former nation, now banana republic, where misleading investors remains illegal, needs to be renamed to USA, the allegedly United States of America. And let's get back to space. Space, a frontier. These are the voyages of a bunch of facts that are suppressed by a bunch of pathetic and putrid corporations who also can't do their own job or stop misleading investors. There are the last couple of hours of solar activity from GOES 16 SUVI with its spectacular wide field of view. Renee Gable Filament is going berserk up there. Is it about to release? It looks like it's headed toward the far side of the sun, probably because the Renee Gable Filament is sick of planet Earth. Here's the last 24 hours and 171 angstroms. As the Kanye West filament approaches the center portion of the solar disk. The prime solar meridian. Is that a thing? Anyway, this brings us to our bonus features segment, which used to be a separate video, and now we're incorporating them all together in one. Charging hazards are non-existent at the moment. It's smooth sailing for satellites. Here's our GOES electron flux, which is kind of low here. I think a little bit lower than expected, probably because that coronal mass ejection impact that we talked about earlier was not forecasted. There are our relativistic electron model forecast. And it looks like NOAA was actually right on with the forecast there. So well done, NOAA, on that one. Expecting a small uptick in the electron flux tomorrow, and I would tend to agree. Here's the one-year chart to put the electron flux in context. That is measured by the GOES 16 and GOES 18 at their geosynchronous orbits at about 22,500 miles of altitude. And let's take a look at the F-flare's vibrational frequency. It has certainly brought some attention to the channel, although most people on the internet have no idea about the South Pacific Anomaly, which used to be known as the South Atlantic Anomaly, and then it moved over to the South American continent, at which point it could have been renamed to the South American Anomaly. Now it's known as the South Pacific Anomaly. Name that anomaly. It's right about here. And those are just facts. Those are just objective facts. And that's why our channel is so controversial, folks. Oh my God, facts. Watch out, folks. Facts. They're very, very scary. I'm spooked. I'm spooked of facts. Let us know in the comments if you're spooked of facts. And if you'd like to cite some facts in a place where they won't be censored, a place where all legal speech is encouraged, head to smashomash.com/forum. We are actual free speech purists, not phonies disguising ourselves and lying to investors about being free speech purists. We tell the truth to our investors and everybody else, unlike certain hack frauds. Next, this is the vibrational frequencies anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. And right there is the South Pacific Anomaly. It's super obvious on the map. It's moved like 1,500 miles in the past few weeks. It seems like it's a permanent move, as it is just fixated at that spot now. And it's been there for weeks. If you weren't aware of it, we aren't surprised, because our content is suppressed on the internet. Hey, Elon, get rid of the fucking shadow bans, you hack. Because if we could get some traction on Twitter, people would probably see the content. Here's the latest image. That's 1500 Universal Time, coming at you very late today. And there's 1500 Universal Time. We have a huge polar low-frequency anomaly happening right around the North Pole right now, and a high-frequency anomaly at the South Pole. Let's take a look at the electron flux next. The total electron content is the electrons between your GPS satellite and your handset. That's about 12,500 miles of altitude. And wow, the electron flux is all over the place. Huge. GPS anomalies expected on a global scale here. We'll let it play through a second time. Massive anomalies there, including this one that we showed yesterday over the Caribbean. That's actually a low electron content. We're going to let that play through a third time here, because that is quite an anomalous total electron content indeed. So not that huge of a surprise, as a CME just happened, an unexpected CME impact. And yeah, an indication that nobody's hiding data. There it is. There are lots of free electrons out of place between the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt and your GPS handset. So turn on your Wi-Fi accuracy if you're navigating. And there is the latest intensitygram and latest magnetogram. Let's take a look at this sunspot up close, which will probably frighten people. So let's go here. Oh, check it out, folks. Oh my God. Look at it. It's shaped like a triangle. It's shaped like a triangle, folks, and all shapes in space are scary. So remember that. That is something to be frightened of. There are the fields. It is beta, gamma, delta class all day. The likelihood of it producing additional X flares is probably above 50%. I would say more likely than not to produce additional major flares. And it's about time to move to the realm of meteorology. So we're going to start out here with the Viking raid forecast. So here is our Viking raids forecast. We're not recommending that you participate in any Viking raids at the moment, as there are 35.5-foot waves there in between Ireland and Greenland. So if you are planning on rowing a boat, like an open top Viking boat from Iceland to Scotland, we recommend that you stay to the east, because that's where the high seas aren't. That is your Viking raids report. And we're always interested in where the biggest waves are, because, well, I am a surfer. I just haven't significantly cultivated that skill yet. Some big waves in the Southern Ocean as well, but I think those are the biggest waves in the world. Up there in the, well, I believe that's the North Atlantic. There's also a huge low pressure system associated with that. Let's take a look at that. The surface winds. Dag. That is a big low. All right, so here is the surface wind scenario for the eastern world. Here is the jet stream scenario for the eastern world. Very straightened out jet stream there over the Pacific. Some very high speeds. 209 kilometers there over the North Pacific. Here are the jets of the west. Large anticyclone here over Central America. You see a clockwise rotation there. That is an upper level high pressure system. Here are the surface winds of the western world. Surface winds of the central world. It's a windy day on the Caspian Sea. And here are the jet streams of the central world. Let's move on to some more weather stuff. First, you're invited to smashomash.com. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. We have started composing the paper to explain the mechanism underlying the solar sunspot cycles. It'll be co-written by Mr. Bagashov. Make sure you subscribe to Eugene the Philosopher. If you haven't, maybe help him out on Patreon as well. Smashomash.com. Assist with clicks, as we need your assistance to get the content onto screens. Do yourself a favor by becoming a member of SureMed. You can click this link right on the homepage. It'll take you to the SureMed page. That is my personal link. If you want me to be your agent of record, become a member of SureMed or drop me a line. If you've got Medicare, I've licensed Medicare insurance agent in 28 states. I will hook you up. If we can offer you a better plan, we'll do it. SureMed, it's got all kinds of features that will help you out and improve your health, like doctors by phone, counselors by phone, virtual veterinarians, dental discounts, vision discounts, and lots more. So check the links. That one will not be available to our international viewers. So here's what's going on in terms of clouds and fog over the Americas. And let's move to our weather map at weather.gov. If your county's lit, click your county at weather.gov. We'll briefly scroll down to show the key as snow continues to fall in eastern California. Those are some winter storm warnings there indeed.